Hello and welcome back to Alex's Daily Grind, where I talk about whatever the hell I want because it's my podcast. Welcome to my head. Short disclaimer before we start, I remember I said that I will not swear in one of my first or second episodes. Well, I take that back because I figured out that swearing, intelligent swearing, that's what I'm going to call it. Intelligent swearing is an essential part of an intelligent conversation, really, of making an intelligent point. Because when I talk to myself, not in a crazy way, I'm not a crazy person, but when I come up with ideas that I want to write down and that I want to talk about during my podcast, I usually talk to myself, in my head for a while, and I see something, and then I say, oh, here's a thought. And then I develop the thought, and then I write it down in the form of a note. So in that process, some things, not all of them, but some things, I take them too seriously, or I take them too close to my heart, too passionately. And swearing just comes automatically because swearing, in many cases, emphasizes the emotion. It emphasizes the importance, or it emphasizes the passion, right? Like, for example, if you close, if you sell your company, fuck yeah, we've done it, guys, or if there is something that you just can't accept, like your friend just signed up for a one-way trip to Mars, you say, what the fuck, man? Right? I mean, if you say it without swearing, it would be like, hey, man, seriously? It's weird, just a little weird, and not as engaging. Like, that person might even think that you're not a real friend if you say it like that, right? So intelligent swearing, smart swearing, if you want to put it this way, I think is essential, and that's kind of the essential part of any meaningful conversation. If it's really passionate, if the conversation is really about important things. So let's start. I have 5 short topics for today, and the first one being, the harder you work, the luckier you become. LOL. Well, I added LOL, but the original version is, the harder you work, the luckier you become. Cool, right? And most of you probably have heard about it already, but I haven't. And, until 3 weeks ago when I wrote that note down. But it's kind of true, and it's amazing how, if you start becoming successful, you start noticing all that stuff that Gary Vee is talking about the haters, and how you have to learn not to see them, not to pay attention. And that's a skill that you learn over time, because as you're progressing, as you're going along your journey, you don't have any haters because no one knows about this. But once you start getting noticeably successful, then that's when you start getting people in your life who would say things like, he was born into money, he had all these friends and connections, of course if I had that stuff, I'd be there. No, you fucking wouldn't. No, because it's not. And I have to say, this thing that I hear this a lot from successful entrepreneurs, like about this hard work thing, right? I don't agree. I mean, first of all, I don't consider it work, right? I don't consider that it's work. It's, it's just the way you live. Second, hard work is even more, kind of, I don't know, it bears the weight of responsibility. Like, you have to work hard, and like whoever listens to that just thinks, oh, okay, I'm a young entrepreneur. I want this to succeed. I need to do something, but I need to work hard. So those people just start pushing themselves, right? And, there are things like Mark Cuban says, like every hour or something, like every bit of time that you spend on bullshit or rest, someone else is kicking your ass, getting you out of business. It's true. But even when you're working hard, someone is still working harder, or, someone is constantly trying to kick you out of business. That's not the point. The point is all about smart decisions along the way. Like, that's, the same stuff that you are working on today can be done smarter. Like Henry Ford said again, like, I'm probably really irritating already by quoting this one phrase that he said in every episode, but it just, it makes sense. Everything that's been done can be done better, right? It's like you can't claim that what you are doing today is the ultimate version of how you can do it. If you claim that, you're a stupid person who probably doesn't really, care about anyone else's opinion about, the history of doing the same type of stuff, about, ways to improve, and you're probably going to lose in the end, because true entrepreneurs, they're always open to, to other opinions, and you're always looking for ways to improve. So whatever you're doing can be done better, right? There is a better way. It's just that you're stuck with this way, and, that's your choice. But without constantly thinking about how what you're doing can be done better, you will most likely lose or not succeed, or succeed in an average way. But if you want to make a big way, you have to be constantly moving around and changing shapes and changing colors and just being all those different things, but staying a course, obviously. So this is what's meant by hard work, right? The harder you work, the luckier you become. I would rephrase that and say, the more dedicated you are, the luckier you become, because it's a matter of dedication. Really, it's a matter of not really paying attention to your failures at all. Learning from them, yes, but paying attention, like, why? It's a matter of the past, right? It already happened. Like, you didn't close the contract, or you heard a bunch of no's, and it doesn't mean a thing. Like, okay, it doesn't mean anything. It's just part of the process. I completely disregard that in my life. But dedication, staying a course, not counting like, oh, I've been in this for four years now and I'm still not successful. Well, guess what? Sometimes people are in something for 10 years. Just, the shitty industry that you've picked, maybe, that takes you so long, and it's all right. It's fine. It's your industry standard, okay? Yeah, and other folks, when they're 18, they're driving their Lambos. It's by no means a sign of success. But if you, in the course of those 4 years, if you are doing what you're passionate about, what you love doing, and that, obviously it's not just that. I'm passionate about boxing, and I'm passionate about soccer. I could be playing soccer like 24/7, really. Like, just as long as my body can tolerate, I can play soccer for real. Like, I love the game, and I'm really good at it. But should I do it for a living? Probably not. There are so many players that are much, much better than me, right? Like 1,000 times better than me. But I enjoy the game. It doesn't mean that I have to make it a living, make a living out of it. So my point is that you have to stay sober in your mind. You have to understand that what you're doing, what you're getting yourself into, will pay off. Or there have been cases of similar things, that paid off. That's the only way of doing this. If you want to make it big, like if you want to be an average person and still love what you do, obviously there are like a million ways to do that, and it's much easier. But this phrase, the harder you work, the luckier you become, is true. It's more, the more dedicated you are to your specific thing, the luckier you become, I would say. And again, there are so many different ways of doing what you do that you don't have to care about competition. I never care about competition. I study it. I know that, that there is competition. It's always a sign that there is market for what you do. But that same company, like, for example, Instagram, and just recently got introduced to TikTok, this new trash content application, which basically lets you upload those 15-second videos with music and bullshit. So it's all trash content that I don't know why anyone would ever want to watch that. But there are millions of people who want to watch that. And that's great, because there is market for that. But if you looked at Instagram and you had this idea, for example, if you were like me, 35, and you were into enterprise, more into B2B, into, consumer applications that make sense, meaningful content, you would say like, what? Like, why would you even consider doing this? If we have stories on Instagram, same stuff, 15 seconds, you can add music to it and shit. So I would say no to this idea, but these guys didn't, and they succeeded. So you never know. first of all. Second, you have to do this if you really believe in it. And third, there are always ways to do things better or differently from your current competition. That's the point. So the harder you work, the luckier you become is truth. Second thing I wanted to talk about is just a little fun fact, really interesting. I saw a documentary, I think, or some video on YouTube about inmates who were in prison for like 20 or 30 years, and they got out, and they got interviewed about the things that shocked them the most. And obviously there was stuff related to technology, like laptops and cars and, those digital advertisement and all that stuff, stock trading, how all that stuff improved or evolved or just emerged and stuff. But surprisingly, people got used to it really fast. What they didn't get used to it, like, that was one guy who pointed out that, the most shocking thing to me was how empty community parks were after 6 p.m. And I was like, why? Yeah, that's true. Like, most of and I'm not sure what part of the country he was in. It might not be true for California, but the example that he gave was that when he was young, before he went to prison, those parks were crowded by youngsters, like 50 to 60 people per community park, just basically socializing, doing stupid shit, the stuff that young people do. And today, you can't see a single soul in those parks after 6 p.m. Why? Well, there are different ways to look at this, but have you ever passed by a restaurant or a cafe today and looked through the window inside and you saw couples and you saw families and you saw, just groups of people sitting at the same table, just next to each other, looking into their phones, checking their apps as if something happened to those apps while, they weren't checking. But the point is that we are dragged into the digital world much deeper than we thought we were. And this feeling of guilt, I guess, that some people have about using their apps while they're with their family and stuff, it's deeper now. Like, before, people were pointing out at that, like parents. I remember, like, there was a time 4 years ago, probably, there was a trend that parents started to really look into the issue, and they started to penalize their kids for using, technology during dinners and stuff like that. And they were really strict about it. They were trying, right? They were trying. There was like this impulse. Today, parents are just sitting next to their kids with their phones, checking their stuff. And it's sad because, it's not that, you want all people to do what you want. It's just that it's sad that, people are so weak that they fall for, for stuff that's so easy. They fall for stuff that's, that's meaningless. They fall for consumption versus production. At the same time, to me as an entrepreneur, it's a great sign. It means that, I have less competition. And it might be a greedy and arrogant thought, but it's true. The more people, become zombies at dinner tables, the more opportunity I personally get. The only thing that I fear is that my kids will also be part of that movement. That's why, we rarely show technology to our 2-year-old son, and we're not planning on. But he will at a certain point discover it anyway. It's just, it's all about habit building, I guess. If you're paying attention, if you show your kids and, other people how beautiful the life is, all those journeys and experiences, I think it's fine to use technology in order to produce stuff. I consume a lot of information, but I try to stay within my 80-20 ratio. It's when 20% of the information is what I consume and 80% is what I produce. I would say that that's my, it's my ideal goal, but in reality, it's probably 50-50. But that's what I'm shooting for. And it's a fun theory. Maybe it's offensive. I'm sorry. But I think if people today were allowed to take cell phones and video game consoles to prison if they somehow manage to commit crime while looking at their fucking phones, then they would be all right. They could, spend years in prison without really having that emotional burden, or, without really, well, provided they don't get raped and they don't get, beaten up and all that stuff. But if they were put in civilized, like Scandinavian prison with access to Instagram, unlimited access to Instagram and video games, they wouldn't fucking care. Like they would, of course it's a theory, but I think if they were allowed to do that, I would change the whole game. Some people would even think like, what? I wouldn't have to work. I'll have to just, lie in my bed 24/7, play video games and check Instagram and post stories. Pfft, I'll take that. I mean, it's a theory, but something inside tells me that could actually be true. And that's freaking scary, because when people stop appreciating their life and the life around them, they're unpredictable. They become unpredictable. And their unpredictableness creates opportunity not for just good guys like me, but for bad guys too. And I don't know. I feel like there is an inflection point happening right now in society. Something's going to happen. Is it going to be a good thing? I have no idea. But it might not be. And that's the scary part of it. Now, the third topic I want to talk about is really, really cool. If you are an aspiring person, entrepreneur, startup, if you're an enterprise, if you're a C-level exec, all this stuff is relevant to you. And what I'm about to tell you right now, it's more towards startups, but here in my laptop, I have this short article that blew me away. This statistics is just amazing. So it's in Russian. I'm gonna translate it a little, live, but it's pretty incredible. It's about how people actually get successful today. And I'm not gonna give you like all this bullshit stuff like, oh, the harder you work, the luckier you become. I already said that. That's the foundation of it. And it's like, that's default. You have to have that in order to become successful. Is that a guarantee? Absolutely not. But here's what the numbers say. So scientists were discovering, they were studying painters, and they were studying museums and galleries in Europe and USA. Museums, main ones, right? Just like 5 or 6 of those that were basically determining the destiny and chances of painters for success. So 3 years, they spent 3 years studying the destiny of hundreds of thousands of painters and their exhibitions and trade history. When those paintings were bought on auctions, for example, or through internet or whatever, they spent 3 years studying that, and the period they studied was from 1980 through 2016. So it's a pretty massive amount of time. So there's a lot of information here, but the conclusion is that if the first 5 exhibitions of a painter happened in the top museums and galleries, then 39% of those painters were in the market even 10 years after those exhibitions. And 60% were still exhibiting in those top museums and galleries. And only 0.2% were left outside, that's just were out of the picture. Those who started to grow organically, though, just from the bottom up, only 14% versus 39%. 14% were in the market in 10 years, and 73% got into the level of like being an average painter, like averagely popular, and only 10% got to prestige by the end of their career, versus 60%. So 10% and 60%. Basically, that's the correlation. So it's not about, the fact is not about the fact of the exhibition, but about about the money that they got, and the glory, and just, being famous, about the success, right? So the conclusion of the authors of that study was that only, I emphasize, only social connections play the main role in painter success, or in success as a whole. Only, not your talent, not how good your idea is, only your social connections. It might not be true for digital products that much, but it kind of is, because from what I see, like if you know people in the investment world, if you know venture capitalists, if you know good developers, if you know people who, like celebrities and stuff who can help you market stuff, then you are inevitably popular, because people fall for that stuff. Remember all those people in cafes and restaurants who just keep looking into their phones? That's the stuff that I'm talking about. My camera is about to die. The battery obviously is low, so you might not hear the rest two things that I want to talk about today. But let me finish this one. So everything that's happening to a painter's career right here and now, good and bad, has really high chances of becoming a success in the future if you have the right social connections. And the formula of that success is basically that you need to grind your way into those social networks of people who are leading your industry, and that momentum will kind of drag you into the system automatically and will give you success. And that's pretty amazing. Before that, just being talented was enough. Today, it's not. And I don't know if it's a sad fact or not. I mean, it's fine with me. By my standards, I think it makes sense, because in today's oversaturated world, I think, that's something that you absolutely need to have. People help people. Without people, you can't become successful. That's normal. So if you like what you hear, don't be an ass and do three things, one after another. First, click like. First, second, click share and add your comment if you wish. Something like, hey, this is awesome. I'm going to share it with my friends and neighbors. And third one, click subscribe, and don't forget to turn on notifications. Oh, and last thing I need you to do. Have a great life.